In 1913, a group of bankers built an institution and handed it the keys to the American economy. In the 110 years since, Congress has never fully audited it. Not when it printed $8 trillion between 2008 and 2022. Not when it secretly lent $15 trillion to Wall Street banks and foreign governments during the financial crisis. Not when the dollar lost over 98% of its purchasing power since the day the Fed opened its doors. One man spent 30 years trying to change that. He won in the House 327 to 98. The Senate never even held a vote. This is the story of the men who tried to audit the Federal Reserve, and what happened to them. The Fed will tell you it's already audited, and technically, that's true. Its financial statements are reviewed annually by Deloitte and Touche, an accounting firm appointed by the Federal Reserve itself. Both auditors answer to the Fed chair directly, which amounts to the Fed saying, "We've investigated ourselves and found ourselves trustworthy." What's actually excluded from any outside review? The open market operations, foreign central bank transactions, the decisions inside the Federal Open Market Committee. The most consequential things the Fed does, nobody gets to see. Not even the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, the independent watchdog designed to audit federal institutions on behalf of the American people. The GAO has been explicitly banned from reviewing the Fed's most critical activities since 1978. As Ron Paul put it, when the Fed talks about independence, what they really mean is secrecy. Ron Paul first introduced Audit the Fed in 1983. For most of those years, he was alone. A Texas libertarian dismissed by both parties. A man speaking into an empty chamber. Year after year, the bill was introduced. Year after year, it died in committee without a vote. Then came 2008. The financial crisis changed everything. The bailouts, the unemployment, the rage. Paul introduced the bill again on February 26, 2009. 11 co-sponsors. Within months, 218. The exact number needed to pass the House. The lone voice had become a movement. The Federal Reserve fought back. The Fed harnessed its money-making machine in an all-out lobbying effort against its own audit. Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke went to Congress personally. He said, "An independent central bank produces better outcomes. Congressional review of monetary policy would be a nightmare scenario." Think about that. The chairman of the Federal Reserve told elected representatives that allowing them to examine the Fed's decisions would be a nightmare. Paul was unmoved. He said, "It's less political when it's out in the open. It's when it's secret that the special interests take control." On one side, the Fed, the Treasury, the White House. On the other, a retiring congressman from Texas. July 25, 2012. The House passed Audit the Fed, 327 to 98. Bipartisan, overwhelming, historic, 30 years of work, culminating in one of the most lopsided votes in recent congressional history. It was Ron Paul's last year in Congress, his greatest legislative victory, and it meant nothing. Dead on arrival in the Senate, no vote called, no debate scheduled. Ron Paul retired in January 2013. The Federal Reserve remained unaudited. But the fight didn't die. Rand Paul took it to the Senate, failed, reintroduced it, failed again. Thomas Massie introduced H.R. 24 in 2023, referred to committee, languished. Rand Paul filed S. 3566 in 2024, same result. Here is what makes this remarkable. Audit the Fed crosses every political line. Bernie Sanders introduced the Senate Companion Bill in 2009. Ron Paul and Bernie Sanders, the two most politically opposite members of Congress of their generation, agreed on this completely. That kind of unity in Washington is almost unheard of, and it still wasn't enough. So why has the Audit the Fed bill, with overwhelming public support, genuine bipartisan backing, and 40 years of momentum, never become law? The official answer from the Fed and its defenders is always the same. Congressional oversight of monetary policy decisions would politicize the Federal Reserve. Aggressive members of Congress, unhappy with an interest rate decision, could dispatch the Government Accountability Office repeatedly to investigate, using it as a weapon to pressure the Fed to change its policies. Fed independence, they argue, protects the economy from short-term political thinking. That is a legitimate argument, and serious economists make it in good faith. But here is the question that never gets asked in those hearings. Independent from whom? The Federal Reserve's member banks, the private commercial banks that own stock in the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks. Those institutions are not subject to the same political independence argument. They have direct influence over the Fed's operations. They elect the majority of the regional board members. They collect dividends on their holdings. So the Federal Reserve is carefully, legally, deliberately independent from Congress. But it has never been independent from the banks it was created to regulate. The Government Accountability Office's own stated opinion is that no complete audit is done. The GAO went on record saying, "We do not see how we can satisfactorily audit the Federal Reserve System without authority to examine the largest single category of financial transactions and assets that it has." The institution that controls the American economy has told the institution designed to oversee it that it cannot be overseen. And for over 100 years, that has been the end of the conversation. Ron Paul gave his farewell address to Congress on November 14, 2012. In it, he asked a question that has never been answered. He said, "If there is nothing to hide, why won't they let us look?" In the years since that speech, the Federal Reserve has expanded its balance sheet to nearly $9 trillion. It has printed money, lent money, set interest rates, and made decisions affecting every American family, without a single complete public accounting of how those decisions were made or who benefited from them. Andrew Jackson destroyed the central bank in 1832 with a quill pen and sheer political will. In 1913, the bankers built it back. In 1983, a congressman from Texas started trying to look inside. 40 years later, the doors are still closed. The vault gets richer, and somewhere, always somewhere, something else is burning. Next video, the Rothschild dynasty. The family that financed both sides of the Napoleonic Wars built a banking empire across 5 countries in a single generation and became the most powerful financial force in 19th century Europe. The documented history and the mythology that has followed them for 200 years. Subscribe to Vault and Ruin. We go where the money went.